Well, hi, friends. Thank you for joining us today. My name's Patrick, and Patrick Mullins, and I am the Director of Public Works at Virginia Stage Company, and it's my pleasure to be able to lead this great panel today. We'll be recording this for posterity so we can share it with our friends about all the wonderful cultural opportunities that are available here in Hampton Roads. And today's conversation is specifically about culturally specific training in Hampton Roads. Before I jump into introducing our lovely panel guests, I do want to take a minute to acknowledge the Chesapeake, Nansemond, and peoples of the Powhatan tribes as the original stewards of this land taken by conquest, on which the Wells Theater and all of us in this region now stand. We also acknowledge the many other Native peoples displaced by colonization and wars who migrated to this port area from elsewhere. These first peoples have not disappeared, and their descendants have endured and greatly contributed to this community. We recognize the profound losses they have suffered, and we invite them to help us make this theater and this theater's programs an artistic and spiritual center for all who seek wisdom, solace, and justice as they experience the arts. I'm sure we'll talk on some of this a little bit more later. But for now, I'm going to segue into our introductions. First up, we have with us Nikki Bass, who is a Nansemond Indian scientist focused on cultural revitalization through environmental stewardship. She weaves traditional and modern Indigenous perspectives into community art, science, and storytelling. Over the past decade, she's dedicated her efforts to the Nansemond River as the original life force of the Nansemond people, the Great Dismal Swamp as a site of intertribal significance, and Hampton Roads as the contemporary footprint of her tribal community. Thank you, Nikki, for being with us here today.
Yes, thank you so much. It's an honor to be with this group and to listen to your stories and cultural activities in the area.
Thank you. Next is Rachel Chris Lazan, who works as the library media specialist at Tallwood High School in Virginia Beach, Global Studies and the World Languages Academy, where she sponsors Tallwood's Filipino Culture Club. Rachel is the director and lead choreographer of the Philippine Cultural Center of Virginia School of Creative and Performing Arts. She's also active with Polynesian Entertainment Troupe. Rachel, tell me the name of your troupe, because I'm not very familiar with the pronunciation.
It's Halal Kahialani o Tulipa.
Excellent. And also the United
Ilocano
Association of Tidewater. Rachel's been very busy in her time here and has served as stage manager and director for local productions, including most recently Sister Cities of Virginia Beach, Tallwood's Global Gala. Rachel is the Mrs. Philippines of Virginia and a past Miss Philippines of Virginia and the Miss Teen Philippines of Virginia. Rachel's an accomplished dancer and choreographer specializing in Filipino folk dance and enjoys reading in her spare time. She's married to her loving husband, Ray Lazan, and is the proud mother of a son, Raynor, and daughters, Reagan and Raleigh. Thank you, Rachel, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Next, we have Corey and Laquita Marie Staten. The dynamic duo are the co-founders of Otumpan Entertainment, Inc., a nonprofit arts organization. Otumpan Entertainment is the premier performing arts ensemble of the Mid-Atlantic region, featuring world music, folklore, and dance. Corey is a summa cum laude graduate of Old Dominion University, and Laquita Marie is a pediatric nurse for 20 years. And Finesse Britton, dance and choreography graduate of Virginia Commonwealth University. And they make up the artistic team that drives ACT Dance Theater to excellence. Their dance, theater, and musical training have been ongoing through numerous workshops, conferences, and masterclasses, in addition to being immersed in collaborations and commissions. As members of Alternate Roots, an arts activism organization, the artistic team of AE is inclusive of all cultures, ethnicities, genders, and preferences in their creative expression at their studio in the Ghent section of Norfolk. Thank you for joining us, Corey and Laquita Marie.
Yes.
Thank you from Edutainment. We're glad to be here.
Thank you.
And the last person I'll introduce is Beatrice Amberman. She has been advocating for human rights for more than 38 years in Virginia. She's the chair and founding member of the Virginia Coalition of Latino Organizations, dedicated to advocate for the rights of Latinos and immigrants. Through that group, they work to educate, empower, and secure equal treatment, opportunity, and representation for Latinos in Virginia. Beatrice is also vice chair of the Virginia Latino Leaders Council and founder of the Hispanic Community Dialogue Organization of Hampton Roads, promoting civic participation and deliberation of issues impacting the community. Mrs. Amberman is a city council appointed member to the Virginia Beach Human Rights Commission, and she has received many awards and commendations for her work, including the YWCA Women of Distinction Award, the OHTLI Award, which is the highest recognition given by the Mexican government to people of Mexican origin living abroad, and from the Ministry of Foreign Relations. And she has also received Lifetime Achievement Awards, Humanitarian Awards, and many others. Beatrice, thank you for joining us today as well.
Well, let me give my sincere appreciation for the Virginia State Company for gathering us all together, and to you, Patrick, for reaching out to each and every one of us. It is an honor to share this space with all of you. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, thank you for joining us. It's my honor to be here. And as I was saying before we went live, to also just be able to have such great people in the space together, and to get to let you cross-pollinate a little bit even. I've given you the brief introduction of the individuals, but I'd like to go person by person and let you tell us a little bit about your organization and your relationship to sharing culture, your particular culture through the arts especially, but also through other means here in Hampton Roads. Rachel, would you mind starting for us?
Oh, no problem. So I'm the director of the School of Creative and Performing Arts, or SCAPA, and we're a program of the Philippine Cultural Center of Virginia and the Council of United Filipino Organizations of Tidewater. And our program is actually one of 3 youth programs at PCC, the other 2 being the Philippine Rondalia Ensemble of Virginia. And the Rondalia is the traditional stringed band that plays much of Filipino music. And the other program is Kuntao Martial Arts. And so the SCAPA program, as we know it today, has existed for a little over 20 years. But before that, it has just existed in different forms for decades earlier, as far back as probably the 1970s. And that's when many Filipinos first came to this area. And so our SCAPA program is twofold. So we have the school, and the school is open to Filipino students age 5 to 18, and they engage in lessons on Tagalog language, folklore, cooking, vocal music, instrumentation, and dance. And so then the other portion of our program is the dance company. And the dance company is who you saw perform with VSC and Public Works in The Tempest and The Earth Remembers. So SCAPA's primary goal is to help students connect to their Filipino heritage, with the mission being to preserve culture and traditions of the Philippines by immersing our youth in the area in art, music, dance, language, and storytelling. So that is our program.
Thank you, Rachel. That's a robust program. It's been really fun to get to interact with it over the last few years and get to know more about all the great things you all share with our community.
Thank you.
Nikki, would you mind telling us a little bit about your organization next, or your interactions next?
Sure. And absolutely, it is an organization. You know, I'm starting to use that word more to help people understand tribal life, because we are a sovereign nation, we are a family, but we are an organization as well, with a mission and functions. And so just to go back, I am a Nansemond tribal citizen. Our people originate around the Nansemond River, but over time, our families have been displaced and essentially spread throughout all of Hampton Roads in northeastern North Carolina. And a lot of our cultural arts aim to share that story with the community. Many people have a limited perspective of Indigenous life from what they learn in school, and we like to bring that understanding to life through real relationships. And the primary means that we share our culture through traditional art, which is really the type of art that our ancestors used as part of their day-to-day life through baskets, pottery, things that are made from the earth and represent a relationship to the earth. And then we also share contemporary art, which has evolved over time within individual tribes and through intertribal relationships. And that can include song, dance, and different social forms of expression. As you may have seen in The Earth Remembers, we joined with Red Crooked Sky, which is an intertribal dance troupe that we use to display different types of contemporary dance and share stories about the meaning of each of those dances in our culture. And the theme, whether it's traditional, contemporary, singing, dancing, all of these art forms aim to bring our people to life and to share our relationship to land, water, spaces, each other, and to uphold values of reciprocity and giving back to the earth, to our communities. And we're really excited to talk here because I think that's something that really spans all of our cultures and organizations.
Thank you, Nikki. Yes, it's been fun. It's been amazing to get to know you and Keith and the rest of Red Crooked Sky, especially during that little moment of The Earth Remembers. And I'm looking forward to seeing more. It was neat to see your performance too at the Moon Festival over at the Berry Museum. That was also really, really impactful.
That was wonderful. I wish they could just be here all the time. It was just so magical to have it out there. And I remember they had to monitor the wind conditions. So,
Yeah.
It's like just keeping it protected. It was such a beautiful piece and a beautiful gathering.
Yes, absolutely. If you weren't aware, there was a huge installation of a moon that hung over at ODU between the Berry Museum and the sports complex there. So very, very, very cool thing. And a Red Crooked Sky danced under it. It was a really amazing night. Let's move on to Atumpan Edutainment.
All right, we are here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. We'll get started. Did you want to start, Corey? Did you want me to start?
You can start. Ladies first.
Ladies first. Yes. All right. I talk a lot, so I'll keep it brief, and then you can interject. Well, Atumpan Edutainment is we have so much fun expressing our culture and teaching others through several different ways in the community, so that whether it's our small ensemble, the dynamic duo, there might just be two of us going to a university, a library, a museum, so that
Staff development workshops, professional development workshops for educators.
Yes, staff development workshop, different workshop for educators, like you're saying, whether we're at NASA Langley,
Virginia Department of Transportation.
Yeah, or some of the other places like the University of Elizabeth City State University. So let's say, for example, there's a small ensemble or there might be a full ensemble, so that they experience African culture in song, dance, storytelling, history. There's interaction, so that if there's a small ensemble and we are speaking to an audience full of people at the Roanoke Symphony Orchestra, then great, we have all of these people at the Roanoke Symphony Orchestra as an audience. However, if there's the dance theater, they say, hey, we need more. We want more culture. We want more than just the small ensemble can bring. We want more than just storytelling, call response. We want more than just the historical information and the engagement. Then great, let's bring the dance theater. And so it's a great experience to be able to provide world music, folklore, and dance.
And to be able to travel and tour with that, because we have been on several tours for the Roanoke Symphony Orchestra. We performed multiple times for the Virginia Symphony Orchestra.
Oh, at Norfolk Scope.
At Norfolk Scope.
That's true.
We've been part of the Virginia International Tattoo, and each time we take the stage, it's multiple levels of learning. Not only are the performers that are taking the classes from us and learning from us, they learn there, but also the audience gets to learn whenever presentation or performance takes place with Atumpan Edutainment. In addition to the learning, the exchange that happens, because as the performers get to perform, they get to see the reaction and hear this and feel what the audience is feeling. So they're learning too about the value of the presentation they're making.
It also deepens the impact of the information that they're presenting. So in that way, there's a duality there.
Right. So what about
the Wells Virginia Stage Company? There's been a lot of fun there, back and forth. Speaking of learning exchanges, Patrick Mullins has been exceptional in that. So it's been great learning about different cultural organizations. And so the way Edutainment Edutainment works, there's always a learning exchange. What were you going to say, Corey? I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that it has been a great time, from doing things the Earth Remembers, and we did The Tempest, being able to perform and take African dance and folklore and storytelling and music.
To immerse it into those spaces.
To put in those spaces with other cultures. It's been phenomenal. And
of course, there's a lot of original works that happen with Edutainment Edutainment in order to engage people in the African culture and to understand that it's not historical, it's still alive, it's very much a present day event. It's a part of everyday life. And so that's the summation of Edutainment Edutainment, a little bit about what we do.
Thank you so much. No, it's been fun we've been everywhere from the Wells with you to the Kroc Center and all sorts of fun places. So
yes.
Thank you. You all have been a joy. And Corey played and Laquita both were in our show, The Earth Remembers, and played the African king and queen and in that story. And we're really wonderful. So thank you.
Singing those songs,
We're still singing those songs, yes.
They're great songs.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now let's shift to Beatrice Amberman.
Thank you, Patrick. What a great opportunity to share a little bit of my background. As a Mexican person that was a dancer of my life, actually performing with the Hispanic or the Mexican folkloric ballet. When I arrived to this country, one of the things that I married an American citizen, that came to my country. We fell in love, and love brought me to Virginia. So anyway, we have 2 children. And one of the things that I found a gift for me was the fact that the arts helped me pass along to my children the pride in our culture. So I took an opportunity to actually visit my children's schools and actually develop programs there in which we share, dances, history, etc., the culture of Mexico in particular. And you mentioned my organizations. The 2 organizations that you mentioned are focused on civic engagement. And actually, my arts background would be that I, became director of the Hispanic Folk Ballet. Unfortunately, we don't have that group any longer. But with that organization, we perform all over the state and inclusive other states, such Ohio State University, etc. And I can tell you that for me, having people preserve their history, their background, it is extremely important in America. And some of the things that we did is with the Hispanic Folk Ballet and being a member of that group, we also participated with the Multicultural Alliance of Virginia in the early 2000s in Virginia Beach, and through the sponsorship of the Arts and Humanities Commission that later on I became a member of, we had a multicultural festival. We did it for about 5 years, and unfortunately, it was very difficult to keep up all the cultures to kind of perform and so forth. So I can tell you how important it is, the work that you're doing right now here, because one of the things that I think we should discuss is that all of these ideas of having America being a melting pot, it brings some misconception to people. And, it could be perceived that the good American is that one who actually pushes aside their cultural background, their costumes and art forms, and becomes one of the many. And in actuality, diversity is actually our common gift. And I feel that we have to value it, appreciate it, and lift it up. And, what I tell people is, fortunately, even in nature, you don't see only one type of flowers, of trees, and so forth. So having all those different cultures is extremely valuable. And for us, we feel that we need to bring the understanding of what Latinos or Hispanic culture is all about. And to give you an idea, it is difficult for Latinos, even though we are the fastest growing population in Virginia and actually in the country. People perceive that maybe we are one monolithic group. And in reality, Latinos or Hispanic people come from 21 different nations. And what I ask Americans to think about, imagine that you visit Asia, a country that doesn't have many people like you. And then all of a sudden, everybody wants to gather together a simple idea. And then they tell you, okay, tell me what English people are all about. And so it will actually be quite difficult for Americans to say, well, what is the difference between Americans, English people, Australian, Irish people, and so forth? Because all of those cultures are unique. So imagine in the Latino community, we have 21 different nations, people that within those nations have indigenous cultures that are extremely strong and that we want to lift up and keep their language, their dances, their history, and all of that. So when you are abroad and you want to have a cohesive, say, festival, well, some individual countries have more populations than others in certain particular states. So it is kind of tough to kind of have an equality of resources or even people that can convey their art forms. So that is basically one of the things that we are striving to do, because with the narrative of trying to insert in some ways shame on people of being immigrant, we want to do the opposite. We want to tell people that all cultures are very valuable and actually give quite a lot to the United States of America. And so lifting them up enriches us all. And for us to teach our children to be proud of who they are, it is through the arts. We need to teach them actually dancing, songs, keep up the storytelling, and so many things. Now, another thing that is a challenge and I want people to think about is I find sometimes concerning the fact that art from indigenous cultures sometimes is not treated as art, but actually as handicrafts. For instance, indigenous paintings, indigenous sculptures. Many people go, I purchased a handicraft from such and such group, when in reality it is art, but not paid equally. So all of those discussions need to take place, and we feel that having an organization that brings that pride to our own people and to tell them that we have to be very secure and proud on our contributions to this country, and that also we need to continue to strengthen the culture and the background of our children. That is a gift for all of us. It's not just for Americans. I think every single culture has a value and enriches us all. So that is one thing that I feel our main work is right now.
Thank you, Beatrice. You've brought up several good talking points that maybe we'll just start there and kind of elaborate on that a little bit. This idea of melting pot and how do you preserve culture while also joining into the region that you're geographically in. Does anybody have any response to that?
Yeah, I so many of your points resonated with me, and I have to apologize for being disconnected. This storm is making my power flicker, but I really relate to that. And I thought a lot about this concept even at the Earth Remembers, because our community is an Indigenous community, but our families have blended with other cultures. And it's important to recognize what's unique and what's, what you need to preserve as an individual community, and also recognize the similarities so that you can understand each other and have the same value for other cultures. So that resonates a lot. I also wanted to touch on Beatrice's point about connecting youth and elders, because in our community, the intergenerational relationships are really important. You may learn things about history and culture in school, but the most important source is your family. And for youth to know people, to know elders, to know friends, to stay connected to the culture, that's a form of cohesion that's really important. So I really appreciated your story.
I'll jump in there. And I was thinking the same thing, that for our community, there's definitely a generational gap. And for me personally, when I got involved in Filipino folk dancing when I was 5 years old, it wasn't my parents that put me in, it was my grandparents. And so it's having that connection. When my grandparents came here, they wanted their children to assimilate. And so my parents, my aunties, my uncles, and I think this is a true, for many, they didn't learn, and it wasn't encouraged that they learn the language. And so now I think that it's the grandparents who are, oh, well, maybe we should have done, a little bit more pushing the culture. And so that's kind of where we have to get the younger group in. Like our program is focused on the youth, but how do you reach youth if there's not parental involvement or familiar involvement? We can't necessarily always just reach them. They don't just come to us. There has to be some family involvement that gets the student involved in the cultural arts.
Yeah, Rachel, I'll quickly ask a question. I don't know about for you, but for me, I think of the importance of reaching youth, not just to give them a lifetime of exposure, but also while they're still brave and curious. And for me, I didn't start dancing until I was an adult. So I joked a lot that I felt like a giant tiny tot, because, we call our baby dancers tiny tots. And, it's, if you reach them early enough in life, they're not so self-conscious. They feel willing to try things, and they're in a group of friends who are going through the same process. So I think there's a lot to gain from the early immersion.
And
absolutely. They're not shy when they're little. It's only when they get older and there's more peer pressures when they start thinking that it's weird to dance, for example.
And that brings us back to the point that actually, the sooner you start teaching the younger generations to feel proud of who they are, but actually from the standpoint of knowing who you are, it's powerful, and it benefits our country, because a lot of the discussions, basically going back to the point that Patrick wanted us to discuss, what is this issue about melting pots? Because in reality, I feel that not even in families, and that is my argument, that not even in families, there are only one and the same. And we have to start acknowledging that people are individuals, and that actually we should not place such a burden to say that everybody has to think the same, be the same. It actually creates this respect once you have a difference of opinion or a different position. And so I think valuing diversity and lifting up the differences are the norm in this world, because they are. Even people that, like I said, in families, we share sometimes the same DNA, and nevertheless, there is not even one single sibling that is the same as the other, right? So it is really a misconception. And then people start to place these stresses upon children. If you express something that is different from everybody else, then you attract bullying and a feeling of you have to hide who you are. And that is incorrect. It behooves us all And that is one of the reasons I think the Virginia Stage Company is really doing a great job by bringing this discussion and this group of diverse artists, to share how we are different, but how we are offering something really valuable to our community.
I'd like to add something there in addition to what you're saying, Beatrice. What we all are saying, reach them while they are young, right? And so what we find, I'm like Nikki, where I started dancing as an adult. And the difference, though, I will say I didn't feel like a tiny tot because it was presented as this is for everyone, So with Atumpan, we have adults, we have children, we have them dancing together or performing together, storytelling together, acting together, because they are all different in the same way that Beatrice is saying. But whether they're different in their, I would say maturity, for example, we might have a 7-year-old that has been born into it, like our children. We have 3 children together, Corey and myself. And those are the only children we have. I'm making it sound like we have others, but
I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, so we had 3 children. And before they were born, we were already immersed in this culture. So by the time they were 7 years old, they knew certain rhythms, certain songs. If they hear a rhythm, they know automatically. So they were a lot more mature in their space than, an adult coming into this space. So by the same token, though, we're all different, yet we're all the same. And so it's like, let's embrace wherever you are, let's do this and make it happen, make it work. And so like you're saying, Beatrice, definitely the bringing us all together, having these discussions to say, yes, continue this, arts are such a powerful expression, of how we can all live in this world. They say art imitates life, but it goes both ways. We know that. And so, I just definitely wanted to interject there that I agree. This is beautiful that we all have to continue to express our culture, embrace others as well, because other people are curious, and they say, well, what is African dance? How do you storytell? Well, let's make you a part of the process, regardless of your ethnicity, your culture, regardless. Come join, experience, explore.
Absolutely. And let me tell you one more thing as a person that actually arrived as an adult in America, right? After I got married, that's when I, came to this country. But one of the things that I noticed is that even though Mexican culture is extremely diverse, we're talking about, many states, and every state in Mexico, for instance, has different and very specific forms of music, dance, food, et cetera, et cetera. So it is extremely diverse. But when I came to America, one of the things that I observed is that I was enchanted with the fact that there were so many people from many different parts of the world, and I felt that I was like a kid in a candy store. I couldn't wait to learn more about other cultures that perhaps I didn't have the opportunity to, meet or in my country. So one of the things that I did is I joined, believe it or not, the Virginia Beach Polish Folk Dance Ensemble. I danced with that group for 15 years, and I, learned all the dances from different regions of Poland, all the songs I had to learn, even though, that Polish is not my language. And so that just brings me with this, Patrick. And I feel that what you're doing here is so valuable. I hope the people that are listening to us today take the opportunity that you are bringing to all of us so that we can experience one another. This is what true brotherhood, and like you said, all of you said, the arts is a safe space that actually invites me to join and you welcome me into your cultures. I know how many times have I gone to the Filipino Cultural Center or gone to the Native American, Indian Museum in Washington, D.C. I'm a member of that because I love, I feel that I'm part indigenous. And so, and with the African community, the same way. So I always am trying to actually connect with others. That is what humanity is all about. And that is actually what will make us behave more kindly to one another. you know, to
I have
get
a
you to
question.
get to know you.
Like, I have a question for you, Beatrice, because you say you were dancing with the Polish and you learned the songs and you learned the names. I have two questions, I guess. Number one, are you now Polish? Number two, do they see you as Polish? Or number three, are you just simply better understanding of Polish culture and you respect it more? But you can answer that.
All of the above. And actually, I have to tell you that many times when I was performing, because my hair was dark and people saw me dancing, and I tell you, I'm a dancer, since I was a young girl. So I was able to learn the dances very easily and well. But when we performed for 15 years, people immediately, and Polish people came to me and they say, "What part of Poland are you from? Because you don't look Polish at all." And what I'm saying is, Polish culture is now in my heart. And one more thing, in Hampton Roads, we have an international folk dancing club. That club meets almost every Friday and they teach dances from all over the world. And now that is another idea for us to kind of like come together, learn, all the dances that all of you have, every now and then one song if we can manage to memorize it. And you will find that the joy of doing that consistently, it just makes you more open and more comfortable being with other people, period.
That's why I asked that question, because your final sentence, it just makes you more comfortable and more joyful around different people, period. That's the point of the arts. That's why we're here. Yes, I agree.
There's something that strikes me about embodiment too, that you learn to better embody the culture that you've inherited, as well as trying on other cultures teaches you about that culture in a really visceral way. That that the little time I've spent around folk dancing and from different nations and areas it's been really fascinating to start to understand that. And I also just want to underline Nikki's phrase, brave and curious. And man, if we could just keep that more as adults, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I wanted to touch on something Laquita said about storytelling, because I see the use of songs and dance and embodying a story as something that's common across Native American culture and African culture. A lot of people don't realize that the communities here, the coastal Algonquian people, didn't have a written language. So we expressed our stories, our knowledge, everything through storytelling. And when you think about storytelling in that sense as a form of education, you realize why your most captivating storytellers are, your knowledge keepers and a resource for the community. And I love seeing that in African dance. I love listening to the rhythms and how you can punctuate with a beat. So I've wanted to do some collaborations or try to work across Native American and African dance groups to tell stories about more modern experiences, like the things that happen to us collectively, in the development of America, 1700s, 1800s. How do we use our forms of expression to continue telling the stories of our communities as they, interconnected with each other?
Nikki, what you're saying is absolutely correct, because in my studies at university, it was so fascinating to see the cross-referencing between the different types of folk tales, between specifically the Eastern First Americans and the West African culture that came from, of course, West Africa. And that's even before, you go back even before the trade of transatlantic slave trade. Those stories exist. And it just speaks to the universal nature of music and stories and songs, because both, and I'm speaking specifically to what you were saying about First Americans and Africans, both are heavily immersed in call response singing. Both are heavily immersed in the heartbeat of the world, which is the percussive orchestras of both cultures. And it is really fascinating. And we've had opportunities to perform with First Americans in different festivals, and it's always been so fun to actually feel and see, and I can't see, but I can feel and hear the actual connection, the connectivity between our music, the American, the indigenous people's music, the stories, our stories, their stories, whether it's a rabbit tale, a tale about a tortoise and a hare, or some kind of animal here in America from First American folklore, or whether it's the same characters in West African folklore. It just speaks to the universal nature of people. The storytelling shows that we're universally united in the sense that we all want everybody around us to be good citizens.
Yeah, through that shared power, we do experience that embodiment that Patrick was discussing, that embodiment of we are one. We all share similar stories. And
again, it just comes from that shared desire of everybody wanting to live in a safe place where, like we said, there are shared powers. And so you do that through the sharing of stories. And as you share stories, you start to see similarities, not only amongst cultures, but amongst individuals. So, yes.
Absolutely.
I agree with the things that you all said. And I think this brings it back to a point that Beatrice made early on, when we really need to just make sure across the board we're elevating our folk arts to the same level as classical arts. We have so many theaters, and I think it's only recently that we've seen them bring in, more international and indigenous groups and putting them again on the same level as classical arts. It's different than classical arts, but it's not beneath any of the classical arts. My preferred art form is dance, and I always say that dance is culture. It incorporates music, it incorporates language, it incorporates geography and storytelling, and all of those things just are melded into the dance. You have to know those things in order to express that dance. And so, even if you don't know the language, and even if you, don't know all of the particulars, you feel it and you move it and you express it. And that all just comes out through the movement and dance.
And what you said, Rachel, is so important. And just to give you an example, when people think about Mexican music, they think it's just one thing, right? But people don't know that, for instance, some of the dances in Mexico, including some of our folk dances, are, some of the dresses came from the Philippines. Like one of the dresses is called China Poblana, like the Chinese from Puebla, right? And it is because evidently there was, in the early days of the Spaniards traveling back and forth from the old and new continent, as you know, they brought Africans to Mexico. They brought actually Asians in. The trade with the Philippines was extremely important. And then, of course, all the native peoples. So all of that is incorporated. And many times, if you go to one region, you can find in the different regions different cultures. But one of the things that I can say is that African music and tempo and all of that has been extremely important all over the world. And Latin music and I mean, could not probably be the same if it wasn't because of the influence of the African cultures into our own. So, when we feel that the discussions in our country right now are that of division, that either one group is better than the other, and that there is a danger of something of yours disappearing from, actually embracing another culture, it is a total fallacy. Look at Mexico. Mexico has gotten stronger. Their arts are very well known all over the world. I mean, dance, music, culinary arts, et cetera, et cetera. And what is all of that? It's the merging of all of those cultures, the indigenous, the African, and everything was welcomed with gusto. And actually now, you can see that it got strengthened, those things, because of all of those new ideas that came from other parts. And that is the beauty of it. So nothing of us is going to disappear. We are going to keep, as human beings, evolving. And our evolving hopefully will bring us to more peaceful living conditions with one another, and actually with love for our fellow, human beings that are sharing this earth with all of us. So
Yeah, I think that's why it's so important that cultural arts is mainstream. It is something that everyone sees, locally and on television and just everywhere. And so, of course, that's something that we bring, but, to just see it elevated to, the same as all others, then, I think more people can see our cultures and appreciate them and become more involved in their own cultures, possibly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love it. That you make a good point. I definitely will say that, Beatrice, you sound like a historian, well, you are. You don't sound like one, you are. You're an artist, a historian. It's beautiful. This is a part that we really enjoy, because when we're all together, we learn so much about each other, our art forms, not just, in these spaces, but when we're physically together, of course, virtually as well. Energy is here. However, we learn so much more, and we're all enlightened. The audiences are, and you have that true learning exchange, so that we all come out the wiser. The audience, the artists, the production, the crew, everyone. Patrick, he levels up too.
Yeah. So this is a challenge then I hear for Patrick. Patrick, at the next opportunity, you have to bring us all again together, but this time in person. And each one of us probably will share a dance with your audience, invite them to participate, and maybe to try a little bit more of our culture. Maybe some type of food, something that will make them feel, that here we are, just join us and enjoy what we have to offer.
Beatrice, I think we need to step it up a notch. Instead of challenging Patrick just to bring us together, we need to challenge Patrick to bring us together, and he has to learn a dance from each culture.
Oh, wow.
Patrick, unmute.
I am not lying when I say, when you mentioned that there's a weekly folk dance, international folk, like I love that.
Yes.
I am not a dancer, but I taught swing dance for a little while in my 20s when that was cool in the late 90s. So I'm up for learning some dance. I'll take that challenge, Corey, and it would be amazing to get you all together. And, some of our other friends, unfortunately, we couldn't get everybody into the Zoom today, but there are so many other cultures here in Hampton Roads too, that we want to celebrate. So I would be remiss to not mention those folks who aren't in the room, in addition to the spectrum of folks that each of you represent. It's really beautiful to see all that.
Well,
we've got about 10 minutes left. I don't want to cut us off too soon, but I also want to make sure that if any of you have opportunities that to share, for us to participate in your culture, or maybe take a class or see a performance, that we'd love to know about those so that we don't miss them. Anybody want to start? Okay, go ahead, Beatrice.
Cinco de Mayo is coming up, and I'm telling you, I think everybody thinks that that's all about drinking, but there is a lot of history behind that. And America, had a good portion to do with why it is celebrated more in America than in Mexico. So I leave that as a homework.
I will say next month is there is Asian Fest, and that will be held on May 21st at Mount Trashmore, and SCAPA is performing, as well as various Asian and Pacific Islander cultures from around the area. And so that is May 21st at Mount Trashmore. So I invite you all. It's open, free to the public. So please join us.
Fantastic, Rachel. Thank you.
Yeah. We right now you can experience us in two ways. First of all, we air our Blind Guy, His Wife, Their Life live YouTube broadcast every week at Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at 11:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Oh, it's backwards.
And we always help. Our mission is to change the narrative of people's normal when it comes to their health, their business, and their wealth. So tune in, like, share, subscribe. Blind Guy, His Wife, Their Life live every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Hump Day to Friday. We're on 11:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
But we have an in-person experience that is, like Rachel was saying, for the Asian Festival coming up, free admission, no charge, all weekend long, Memorial Day weekend, there's Umoja Festival in Portsmouth. We do open the festival after the VIP boat ride. Only the people on the VIP boat ride experience us there.
But the opening features us doing traditional West African dance, music, and pouring of libation to honor those ancestors that went on before us.
And we do have interaction before the libation, so that way people can also join in. They can have that call and response or personal experience.
They'll get to step into the bantaba or the dance circle every performance to learn an actual dance from West African culture. So
you're talking about Friday night or Saturday and Sunday?
Saturday and Sunday.
Yes.
Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday.
So that's coming up Memorial Day weekend, May 27th to 29th
in Portsmouth, Virginia.
2022. Yes, thank you.
Yes, I can't wait to go to that. And it's starting out with powwow season. So if anyone's interested, that same weekend, there will be the Upper Mattaponi powwow. Thankfully, these are multiple days, so you can go to everything. And our annual powwow happens in August on the 20th and 21st this year. So everyone's welcome to join that. Between powwow time, we do a lot of community cultural events. We'll be at one in Newport News in May, and we'll be at Jamestown soon. And there will be other powwows further out, like in Monacan territory in early June. So keep an eye out for those and always feel welcome to join. Sometimes there's a misconception that people can't come, but they're public social events. And the goal is to connect with the community there. So really excited to see everyone at community events.
And I almost forgot that June 12th is actually when we celebrate Philippine Independence Day. And there is a big event put on by the Sister Cities Association of Norfolk. And that will be at Lafayette Park in Norfolk. And so SCAPA will also be performing there, as well as, again, other specifically Filipino organizations from around our area and beyond. So that is June 12th is Philippine Independence Day.
And June 18th, we will be celebrating, we'll be honoring Juneteenth in Jamestown at the Jamestown Settlement. And there'll be it'll be performances from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. We will be leading off with, again, the pouring of libation, the storytelling, and we'll be doing dances in between. I have to ask this question. Nikki, are you related to Chief Earl Bass?
Yes.
Oh.
This is the impact of culture. He came to my intermediate school and elementary school in Deep Creek so many times
in Chesapeake,
Virginia, and made so many presentations. And he just impressed me when he would come in full regalia, and he was just so regal, and he would tell stories, and he would, teach us things about teach the children things about the regalia. And I'm 47.
Don't tell your age.
I'm 47 years old, and I still remember this man from 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade.
Yes. And, that is why, all of us have busy lives. And, there are times when I'm sure all of us are just like, oh, can I make it? Can I squeeze in one more thing? But each moment of connection changes someone's life. And people share that about this is the older Chief Earl. His name is carried forward. So there are younger Earls too, but, so many memories. And my family was there in Deep Creek, and people just spread out. And so I always think about how to keep my arms around the community, like keep people close to each other. Just last night, I had a virtual youth council planning meeting, and our kids are in different places at college. And it's just, how do we keep our families and our communities close as we spread out? And I think the cultural arts empower us to do that. It's something that we share and that leaves an impression on your heart for life.
Yeah. And finally, Patrick, let me just give an idea to all of us, and that is the importance of civic engagement. We must also make sure that we reach out to our representatives, our elected representatives, and make sure that there's enough funding for our arts programs. That is key. That brings good living for all communities. And so let's remember that every January, we have the opportunity to influence our elected officials to make sure that, we keep alive this good feeling of brotherhood in our communities, and that is through the arts. So we must do that. And I will invite everyone that can travel out of the state. The Virginia Coalition of Latino Organizations is partnering with the Virginia Latino Advisory Board by the governor, and we're going to have a meeting on the 12th of May, and we're going to come together and precisely tell our Virginia Latino Advisory Board what are the recommendations that we, as a Latino community, are asking them to place on the desk of the governor. So that is an important part for all of us, and I guess that is my last, little piece to share with all of you. Let's do that.
Wow, what fantastic things that you shared. Well, thank you all for joining us today. And I'm going to cut off the recording here, but then I have a question for you after we go. Okay, so thank you, those of you who joined us virtually, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.